Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Master Your Mindset podcast. I'm really, really excited about this conversation because I'm bringing on a special guest who I'm actually in a mastermind with together. And we have just gotten to know each other so well. And I've been waiting for so long to bring Georgia on. So today I have Georgia Zentrich, who is a mindset coach helping heart-led humans unmask and feel free to be who they are at their core. But it doesn't end there. Georgia is also an incredible DJ. So, Georgia, welcome to the Master Your Mindset podcast.
Thank you so much, Jessie. I am, just super excited and stoked to be here.
Yay! We're going to be talking about some really cool things today. I've actually done a live IG with Georgia for the listeners at home. So you may have seen that, but you may have not. So if you haven't, go and watch that. But we're going to be talking about all things self-expression, unmasking, being you at your core. But first, I always like to ask the guests that I bring on a little bit about their story. So I would love to know, and I know the listeners would love to know, your journey to where you are and who you are in life now.
Mm. I would say probably like growing up, like as a child, I always felt like I was different in some way. I couldn't really put a finger on what exactly it was. I guess in primary school, I'd say I was a bit of a geek, like a bit of a nerd. I did extra homework just for fun. Like my teacher didn't ask me to. And I was like, here's my extra homework. Like, I don't know who the fuck does that, but me,
Love.
obviously. And I guess I, growing up as, a child, as a teenager, I think I just struggled socially with friends, experienced a lot of bullying. And as a result, I probably stopped being who I really was at my core, developed a like mistrust of people, of friends, and that kind of thing, which was, really hard. And it really hasn't been, I guess, until the last few years that I've really actually discovered, who I really am. So I have come out as queer and non-binary. So I came out as non-binary this year. And I'm also, over the last year, started exploring being neurodivergent. So with autism and ADHD, undiagnosed. And that's just been a really beautiful part of my journey to understand who I am from that lens, because I think for a long time there are things that I didn't quite understand, but understanding it through that lens helps me make sense of myself. And I guess a little bit about sort of my professional journey is I studied psychology at uni, and I just always thought, like, I'm going to be a clinical psychologist. This is exactly, what I want to do. I'd struggled with depression, anxiety since I was like 16, and later in life processed trauma from like childhood sexual abuse that came up. And essentially I just finished uni and I was like, fuck this. I want to travel. I want to live my life. I don't want to study to do my master's to become a psychologist. And I just sort of fell into youth work. I was supposed to move to London in 2020 because I was like, I'm lost. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And that fell through because of COVID. And that's where I really got my first youth work job and found my feet in that area. And over the last few years, I've ran 3 years, I've run 4 businesses, which is wild, wild to say. So my first one was selling essential oil yoga mat sprays. But yeah, now what I do is I'm a mindset coach and a DJ, also a qualified yoga teacher, but I don't teach anymore. So that's, a little bit about me. And I think, you do hear people say in the coaching space, in the self-development space, I'm multifaceted, I'm multi-passionate, but actually I'm so multifaceted. Like the fact that, I can be this DJ in a club, but then I also like have this deep healing spiritual side of me. It's like but it just all makes sense because it's all me. And I'd say for a long time, I tried to compartmentalize it. Like there's yoga teacher Georgia, there's DJ Georgia, there's psychology Georgia, but it's like, fuck, they're actually all sides of me. So yeah, it's a little bit about my journey.
I totally resonate with the whole multifaceted. And that's why for me, like mindset coaching is kind of like very, very broad because I like to like talk about so many different conversations or have so many different conversations around so many different things. But I can see how you would have started making them all separate, but realizing that actually now that they're all different parts of you and it's okay to have them be so different from each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, but also, okay, so something that I'm going to bring up that I never thought I would, but it's something that I've been thinking about for quite some time now, and it's definitely not in my area or in any type of control that I can have, but I can have my opinions on it or my thoughts, and I love having discussions around it. So I think a lot of people experience being bullied in school, and I'm not sure what the different reasons are for. But when it comes to school, something that I find and this is because you brought up, you said you're a little nerd, which is quite funny because I consider myself not a nerd then, but completely a nerd now.
Yes.
Such a nerd. But I really think so much about how this world needs, is going to constantly progress, but we need education to be at its prime, and that starts with the children. And I know every single human is different, so it's like there's so many different ways that kids, adults, teenagers, humans learn. And I know that, especially doing my NLP cert. But you could have people that learn, they're very visual. You could have people that need the facts. You could have people that are or kinesthetic, whatever it is. And there's a lot of areas that people can learn from, and like the best ways that they learn. So I don't know, what's your opinions on how do you think we can bring a safer space for kids to actually want to learn, to actually bring in, like, because some people just tap off and then some people are in. And I know that some people, I don't know where I'm going with this, but like kids definitely, there's probably something around the bullying as well to do with that, like some are nerds, some just don't even want to learn anymore because the others find it easy and these ones don't. I don't know. What's your thoughts about this? I'm going to open up a discussion.
Oh, wow. Like, I guess for me, sort of come at it from a neurodevelopmental lens in one way, in that, everyone else, we all have different learning needs, whether you are neurotypical or whether you're neurodivergent, whether you have a disability. Like someone who maybe has a disability, they might need more time to work through things, to learn through things. I know some people might have to repeat things multiple times to take in the information in. And like you said, visual learners learn differently. And I think I'd say the school system is quite rigid, right? It's like textbook. This is what you do. This is what you learn. You do all the tests. You have to remember things. I'm pretty certain I have ADHD. I don't know how I did all those tests, because when we're tested on how we operate essentially in a neurotypical world, right? The school system is for neurotypical people. The work system is for neurotypical people. Work a 9-to-5 job. Your performance is based upon the results that you get. And I think I don't know how it is in schools nowadays, but it would be amazing to see schools and even parents work with their kids in more of a praising them for the effort. Because, for some people, like I was quite intelligent and school came easily for me, but for other people who maybe aren't as intelligent, they might have had to work twice as hard, but their results might not have been the same as mine. It doesn't mean they're stupid. And I don't know, there's like a cartoon and then there's like an elephant and a giraffe and something else, and they're like measuring intelligence, but it's like you can't measure intelligence when we all have different ways of being intelligent. Some people are emotionally intelligent, some people are good with numbers, some people are very practical. And I think it's almost a flaw in the school system that they're like, intelligence is solely work-based. This is the one way of measuring it. I think there's so much more to intelligence than just your marks.
I was like, when I started opening up that discussion, I was like, why do I feel called to
Yeah.
open this up? But I know
Yeah.
now it's because you can come from a neurodivergent lens and you have more expertise in that, whereas I don't. So I can come from that neurotypical lens. And, you know, even like, so in my NLP cert, there are the people who learn best with their kinesthetic, so feeling based. I'm audio digital, so I need the facts. I need you to tell me exactly what it is, when it is, where it is, and that is the best way I will learn. Some people are visual, and then some people are audio, and there are probably a lot more. But for these ones, I don't know. I always think about, you know, even as kids, how would we do it best? You don't want to segregate and put everyone into their groups, because then they don't learn the different ways. But it's like, how can we spend more time? You know, maybe we can do all of the ways. You get a worksheet that has the facts. Maybe you also get a video on YouTube that has the visuals. Maybe, you know, just bringing in more. But it's definitely something that I think about. But obviously I don't have all the facts, and I don't know what the schooling is like, and I wouldn't say it was bad for me. It's just ideas. I'm always thinking about ways to expand, not necessarily that are broken, just ways to expand. So that's where my mind goes.
And I guess like it's about teachers trying to work with, you know, the students and work in different ways depending upon what their needs. Because I think it's like often like the teacher says this is the one way of doing things, but for some kids it's like, actually that doesn't work for, you know, how my it might not be the best for how my brain works and how I like to learn. So interesting question.
I mean, and I think very deep, we can leave it at that, but I definitely could come into, you know, sometimes, you know, the teachers, they're doing exactly what they have to do, not anything more, because of their paycheck and all of the things. So obviously there's more to it. So if you're listening at home and you form your own opinions and your thoughts on that, I guess just think about it all before you start really expressing. But well, you know, you express your opinions, but that actually is a really good segue onto something that I see you as an authority in. And I've told you this a lot, but I see you as a self-expression queen. Like, I really, really do. So I would love to know, what does self-expression mean to you? And why is it so important for everyone to really find their true, authentic expression and actually express that rather than hiding it?
And so I guess I am going to talk about this from a neurodivergent lens. So really self-expression for me is about like being who you are at your core, but also as someone who's neurodivergent, I have found that over the years and probably over my whole life, I've masked depending upon who I'm with, what qualities I have maybe felt ashamed about. So for example, I was in a relationship and at times my partner would say, you know, you're being really loud. So I was like, fuck, okay, I'm going to suppress that part of myself a bit more because I feel ashamed for expressing that. So as much as expression is about who you are, for a lot of us, it depends upon who you're with, you know, so, and what environments you're in. And I was thinking about this earlier, and also for me being queer and non-binary, self-expression is in my gender identity, my sexual identity, how I express myself in that way, what clothing I wear, and, you know, who I portray to the world. I recently DJ'd on some cruises, which was really fun, but I made the conscious decision when I was doing that, look, I don't know these people. It's not like I'm there long term, like it was just for a few weeks. So I made the conscious decision to not share my gender identity with people. You know, I was like, well, I'm passing as a female. I was born a female, look like a female. So I just decided this actually feels best for me, because I don't want to the emotional labor of then having to try and explain to these people what non-binary is and doing all of that. And that was a conscious decision that I made. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that that part of my self-expression was wrong. And ultimately, it was just me doing what I needed to do to protect myself from judgment, from having to put myself out there and potentially be rejected. So, you know, self-expression is about who we are, but it's also about, okay, there are some environments and some people, maybe we do have certain masks to protect ourselves. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that that wasn't me. It was still me. It's just the me with the mask. So.
I actually really, really like that, how you bring up, because there would probably be more stress and whatever that comes from actually saying that and then potentially being rejected when you're actually in this environment for a very, very short amount of time and no one's going to know you, and you're probably not going to see these people after. Probably a lot of stress when you can know within yourself what you want to, or who you are at your true core. But you don't have to say this to people, because it's more easier, but not masking that, or masking it for a little bit of time, but not knowing that within yourself, or knowing that within yourself who you are. I really like that. I've never actually thought about it from that perspective as well. Yeah, it's super interesting. I actually probably should have asked you this in the beginning, but can you explain, just for the listeners who don't know, the difference between neurodivergent and neurotypical?
Yeah, absolutely. So neurodivergent is essentially when someone has it's a neurodevelopmental disorder, but I don't really like to use that word. It's just, I guess, a condition where our brains, the structure of our brains, and this is in terms of neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, and actually the structure, so like differences in prefrontal cortex size or anything, operates differently compared to someone who doesn't have, I guess, a condition. So sort of neurodivergent, I guess, conditions are things like ADHD, being on the autism spectrum, bipolar disorder, potentially borderline disorder. Essentially, when there's any differences in the brain compared to someone without any conditions like that. And it doesn't mean that, we're any less. It just means that our brains operate in a different way. And as a result of the differences in our brain function, we then have impacts on our behavior, our thought processes, our emotions. So it's sort of, and it's because it's also neurodevelopmental, it's something that we've grown up with too. A lot of the time, like, for example, for me, I haven't really realized until the last year that I'm neurodivergent. But it's sort of, the signs were always there. Like, my mum wrote in my baby book something like, she's always fidgeting, she's always talking. And I'm like, that is a marker of ADHD. So it's not that it hasn't always been there, but I think a lot of adults now are now realizing this and understanding themselves through that lens. So yeah, does that help answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that gives a really good explanation for myself and for others to really understand what that is, because this is really cool to have a conversation and with your lens through of neurodivergent, because I don't really know that, because that, I'm not neurodivergent. So I think it's really, really cool to have this conversation around it. And then, so we've been talking about unmasking a little bit, and, when it feels good to express yourself fully, and when, you don't have to necessarily tell people and things. I know that you coach on this and unmasking, and you have, you just did a free challenge on this recently as well. I would love to know what sort of ways you create safety for your clients and for, the people that you coach and teach around unmasking.
Yeah. I would say, for me, it really differs depending upon the person and, I guess, the environment. Like, it's going to be different if I'm working one-on-one with a client compared to as like, for example, in my challenge. But for me, like, when I'm working with a client, what's really important is that I'm just seeing them for who they are, and I'm not judging them, and I'm really just listening to them and their needs. And I think what I find that I'm able to do is piece things together when they might not realize potentially that they have been masking, and ask a question and help them understand that and help them understand themselves. And it really just comes back to listening to them and also asking them, what they need from me. That's really important when I'm working with my clients, because I understand that not everyone is different. Sometimes clients just need space. They just need a process. Or sometimes if they're forgetful, they might need reminders. It's really about like, how can I best support that client? Because at the end of the day, everyone's different. And, you know, whether it's in a group program, an event, or whatever I'm doing, I really want to create a space where people can actually just fucking be themselves. Because I think we spend so much time trying to be someone that we're not. And it almost isn't until you realize that you're like, fuck, I actually have been in a relationship where I've been masking, or I've been masking at work because I don't feel I can comfortably be myself around people. And it's just the most liberating feeling when you can get into any space, whether it's online, in person, free, paid, group, or working one-on-one, and just actually fucking be yourself. You know, it's, everyone deserves to feel that way, to just like finish a conversation or spending time with someone and just feel like, I just feel so good. I just feel like I was being me, and I feel seen and heard. And that's, you know, what we all want. We all want to feel seen and heard and just be loved with who we are.
I love this. I'm bringing back memories of, you know, me working on the super yachts. So I think most people know that I worked on the super yachts for 8 years, and it's actually so interesting what I have been realizing ever since I have been off the super yachts in terms of how much of myself I masked. Now, I loved my job. I loved the industry so much. It served me for my younger years, while I was finding out my passions and, you know, making the money and things. So I really, really love that industry so much. But I realize now so much of me was masked because I'm starting to just like explore myself again in terms of my expression. And I'm literally like, ask Nate, I'm like so weird. Yes. I'm confusing myself. I'm like, wow, I just like, I don't know. I just do the weirdest things at the weirdest times, and it's just so much fun, and it's just so playful. And, you know, like I'll just randomly break out into the weirdest dance, or like just, I don't know. I do things, but what, you know, I had those, and then I look back and reflect. And I had those times where I was told off for being too loud, and my voice was this. I walked too loud, and you know, you really in this industry. If I could describe this industry straight away, it would be cutthroat, because you literally have to conform almost, to be someone, you know, in this type of industry with, you know, you're with really wealthy people, and you know, so there was so many parts of me that I just suppressed a lot. But it's actually really cool, because now that I'm out, it didn't affect me because I didn't really realize in the time. The voice thing did affect me, but that's another story. Like now I'm so fine. I'm expressing myself. It's fun. It's playful. And I'm just like, I've taken off those masks. It's really fun to actually explore. It doesn't necessarily, it can be very vulnerable. It can be very vulnerable to take off masks. And that's why I said, like, what's the safety around this? How for people that really need that. But it's like, also there's that side of it that can be just like curious and fun. Take off your mask one at a time and explore who you are. And I actually wanted to ask you a question, and I'm not sure if this is the right term, but would you consider unmasking, and that's a term I'm not sure if it's correct, but would you consider unmasking even just finding it out for yourself? Like not even necessarily telling people? Would it be like, even if I'm working one-on-one with a coach to help me unmask, it's just like, if you find that out within yourself, you're kind of taking off that mask, right?
Like, I guess I generally consider it in terms of around other people or online, but you can definitely unmask yourself, because essentially you're just then realizing the layers that, you know, you've had on, and you're taking it off. Like, you know, I can be in my kitchen and I fucking love dancing in my kitchen and being weird, and that's me unmasking, even if no one's there, or even if I don't post it online, which I do sometimes. Like, that's still me unmasking. It's like, that's like my safe space where I can just be weird, you know. So I think, while you can do it with a coach, or do it online, or with friends or a partner, whatever that looks like, with whatever people in whatever environment, you can absolutely just do it for yourself. And I think that's almost like it's like the first layer, because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm expressing this part of myself. Okay, this feels good. This feels me. And then, it's like, okay, are there parts of my life where I'm not showing this? Interesting. Why am I not showing this? Do I want to? What does that look like? Because there's just so many different layers to it, which is so beautiful. And I love what you said about like getting curious and playful and fun. And, at the end of the day, it's we mask ourselves, we mask parts of ourselves because of our own conditioning from what we've been brought up in childhood, knowing, I think 90, I don't know, there's a statistic, but I think most of our beliefs are formed by the age by the time we're 7 years old. So our thoughts, our beliefs, our values, our habits. And then we mask ourselves also because of any shame that we feel because of society and other people. But then as a result of the first two, we then can self-sabotage and not show those parts of ourselves. And that's not to shame ourselves for not doing it, because often, I guess, like you said, with your yachting, it's like you didn't even realize until later, and you were like, shit, I had to pretend to be this person, because that's actually what I had to do in the job. It's not bad. You did what you had to do. And it's like, okay, what do I need to do moving forward to uncover these layers of who I am?
Yeah, I love that. And also something that I'm thinking about on that is I feel like everything happens for a reason. Let's go cliche. Everything happens for a reason. And I feel like being in this job and having that, I'm going to call it an opportunity to keep my masks on, really helped me to uncover different parts of me that I never knew, and just like find the version of me that was then. And then now being able to take those masks off, because I really I'm so landed in the version of me that I am, with all that I've known, with all that I've experienced, with my wisdom, that I can start taking off these masks and explore this part. Like, I don't believe that we have to do absolutely everything at once. Like, there's a time and place for everything. So I think it served me really, really well. And what I will say for the listeners, that, everything happens in divine timing. So if this is your sign to start that exploration within yourself and taking off a mask, maybe, or just exploring what masks you might have on, use this as a sign, use this as a permission slip, because I feel like you are listening to this for a reason.
I love that. And I guess one sort of concept that I use, that I learned from my psychology degree, I use it when speaking to clients about this thing. It's called like exposure therapy, and there are sort of two different ways you can do this. So there's the first way, which is like flooded exposure. So if you would take like the thing that you're most afraid of and doing that straight away. So it's like you're just going from 0 to 100 really quick. And then the other way, which is called more gradual exposure, is if you were to look at, okay, what's the thing that I'm most afraid of? Maybe it's, I don't know, posting a video of me online. It's like, what are the steps that you can do to get there, to be like, okay, I have to take the video, I have to show a friend. It's like building up to that thing that fears you the most. And I think, often the fear that we have is, it's more not, I guess, it's not catastrophized, but once you do the thing, you'll be like, oh fuck, like I'm actually cool, like I'm alive. Like, we often fear, the worst thing that we fear can sometimes be the best thing for us, for whatever reason, helps us grow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that so much. And I'm going to get, I don't know, maybe this seems very dramatic here, but okay, so we both have Sarah as our coach, and she's quite direct. So this is kind of like where this is coming from, I think. But it's like, do you think that one of the biggest consequences potentially that could happen for people that don't have that exploration, that time to explore different parts of their expression, do you think that one of the consequences could be they could get to the end of their life and have regrets in life?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think there's a statistic that I found. It's like either 90 or 90-ish% of people get to their deathbed and regret things that they didn't do. And you can't change that. When you get there and you said, God, I wish I did this thing, I wish I started this business, whatever that looks like. And it's, you do truly only have one life. And what's the thing that if you were to wake up tomorrow and you would regret not doing it, like tomorrow is your last day on earth, you're on your deathbed, you have no opportunity, you can't even leave that bed. What is the thing that you regret doing? It's time to start doing more of that, and whatever that looks like for you, and why can't you be who you are? Like what's actually holding you back? Because often we fear the rejection from other people, whatever that looks like. But when we're not ourselves, we're actually rejecting that part of ourselves, and it's like, there's just no freer feeling than just taking off the mask and being like, you know what, I'm cool. Like, no, I'm fine. I'm still alive. Like, maybe some people unfollowed me. Sick. They're not my people. Like, it's like, yeah, we are so much more capable than we give ourselves credit for, I really think.
And then with that exact example, like the people who unfollowed you, and who cares? Like, that's fine. They're not your people. We could potentially find that we're making problems a bigger problem that they need to be. And if we just take that off, it feels so much more free, which I love. So if you have a core value of freedom, this is your time to start exploring. I say that because freedom is definitely one of my core values.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there was something else that I wanted to say on that, but I'm blank, so that's absolutely fine. But I think that this discussion is always so cool and so important. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. You were asking like a lot of questions, so I feel like that, well, to yourself. So I feel like that is such a good point to bring in. I think, if you don't want to get down the track and to the end of your life and have those regrets, I think one thing to start doing is self-inquiry, because the more you ask questions to yourself, the more you are going to start getting answers or searching for answers. And then the more we're going to start to discover more about ourselves and understand ourselves. And I feel like one of the things that I say so often is that we're always trying to get other people to understand us. But it's like, if we just understand ourselves, it feels just as good, or if not better.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely agree. And I think, it's like on this journey of me exploring being neurodivergent, coming out as non-binary, it's like, well, fuck, like, as long as I know who I am, that's all that matters. That is the most important thing. It's like, as long as I've got me, as long as I'm okay in who I am, how I'm expressing myself, then that is really all that matters. I remember I was at a business retreat with Sarah actually earlier. It was hosted by her early in the year. And we did this like ceremonial cacao session. And it's probably come up before for me, but I suppressed it. And it came up and I was like, fuck, I don't feel like a girl. I just don't feel like this body is mine. And I shared it with the group, and it was really vulnerable and it was really scary because I had not shared that, being non-binary, in any kind of environment before. And almost I felt like after that retreat I suppressed it. I was going through a breakup pretty much at that time, and was in a job that wasn't for me, which I ended up quitting down the track. And for like 6 months or so, I was like, this just needs to be suppressed because it's too much for me to process. And it came up later in the year, like a few months ago, and it was like about where I'd given my power away. And I was like, fuck, I've given my power away because I'm afraid to come out as non-binary because I'm worried what people think. Well, it's like, well, fuck, actually, who cares? As long as I know who I am, then that's the most important thing. And it's been so empowering actually starting to own that part of me. And it's scary. I think there are a lot more people coming out as queer, whether they're bisexual, lesbian, gender diverse, trans, honestly, whatever that looks like, which is amazing, but it is still fucking scary. And it's like, can that be okay? And there's no right process for any of that. I think that's really an important message for any kind of unmasking, whether you're queer, neurodivergent, spiritual, like whatever you're doing, there is no right way. There's only the way that feels right for you. And as long as you are happy with who you are, or you're working on it, or you're seeing yourself, then fuck, that's actually all that matters. No one else, like, yes, if someone says something to you, it can be hard to hold that, but as long as you hold yourself, then that's all that matters.
You know, and one of the most common beliefs, or common fears, I should say, that humans have is the fear of judgment, right?
Yeah.
Well, if everyone's fearing judgment, who's actually doing the judging, right? Are people judging and they're fearing judgment? I don't know. But like, what I would say is that if you think someone's judging you, first of all, like you say, who cares? Actually, who cares? Secondly, if you could put yourself into their shoes just to ease your own mind a little bit better, you have no idea. They probably don't even have an idea what's going on based on their beliefs, based on what their own masks are, based on their shadows, based on what they're hiding, based on what they're projecting onto you. So everyone has, this is kind of a different take on, everyone's going through things, but it's like everyone has their things, whether they're conscious to it or unconscious to it. So when it comes to people judging, it's either something that's going on within them, or well, it's something that's going on within inside them.
Yeah.
Or it's a story that you're making in your head that people are judging and they're actually not. So, but it doesn't matter either way. It doesn't matter. It's like everyone's working on themselves, or everyone, I guess, isn't working on themselves, but are just unconscious to the work that they need to do on themselves. And that's just the way it is. So if that eases anyone's mind on, because a lot of people would be like, yeah, so many people say, just don't care about it. It's like, yeah, I get that it's a little bit more, like, it's a little bit harder than just saying I just don't care, because you can't just tell yourself I just don't care. But it's also just like, ease your mind with everyone's going through things, put yourself in shoes, have no idea what they're consciously or unconsciously going through, and then it's like a little bit easier for you to actually not care, because it's just you doing your thing.
It's like you're allowed to care, because I mean, at the end of the day, we're social creatures. We need connection. We do need, we need friendships, connections, relationships, whatever that is. Like, you can't operate not connecting with other humans. It literally doesn't work. But so yeah, it's okay to care about not wanting to be judged, but it's like, yeah, what do you do with it? And I find that often, maybe if I'm judging myself, or if a client is worried about judgment, it's probably that they're actually judging themselves, or maybe I'm judging myself, and that's something to look at. It's like, yeah, but I love what you said. Yeah, beautifully said.
I actually think that's really a cool segue to something I actually wanted to talk about. So you know how we say we're all connected and we're all social creatures and things like that. Social creatures, yeah. I'm like, wait. But yeah, we're all like connected in things. I believe that if you, and this is also a safe way to explore yourself, is like, if you are exploring yourself, find your people. We talked about before, someone might have unfollowed you. It doesn't matter. They're not your person. And you and I both know the really, really deep importance of proximity and getting yourself into spaces of people that are your people, are supporters, are expanders. You and I being in the same mastermind, we know that. So I would love to know all of your thoughts on, getting yourself into the spaces, because I do think that this is a safe way to explore the different parts of you and understand yourself.
Yeah. So I think it's like, and I guess just a little bit about me. A few years ago, before I started my businesses, before I had my spiritual awakening with my yoga teacher training, I was in a very different friendship group. I was drinking, taking drugs, partying. Like, that was the vibe. And that was, I guess, how we bonded. And it's not to shame that, because that's just what I did at the time. That's all I knew. And when I started my businesses and was going on this different path, I just felt this misalignment. I'm like, I just feel different. Like, I can't really be me. I don't really, I guess, ultimately, like, feel included, and like I can be myself. And that's when I invested into my first group coaching program. And I was like, fuck, like, this exists, like, communities of people getting together, celebrating each other, supporting each other, talking about like deep shit, like, and actually connecting with each other. And it's like if you're in friendship circles or relationships or whatever it is and you're not feeling satisfied, it's not to say that you have to cut everyone out, but it's like, okay, what do you actually need? What do you want to connect with people with? And it's not, there are so many different ways. Like there's online, in person, there's free Facebook groups, there's paid programs, like we're in a mastermind together, which is amazing. And it's like, what actually do you need? What do you want to connect with people with? Because I can guarantee that if you're someone who's feeling alone and like people don't get you, your people are out there. You just have to find them. Even last year I was going to a breath work and it was like breath work and a cold swim session quite regularly. I found this group because I don't know, a year or two ago, I literally just posted on Instagram. I shared a similar thing that's in Melbourne, and I was like, this is sick. Why don't we have this in Wollongong? And someone was like, oh, we do. There's this thing called rewired breathwork. And I was like, oh, what the fuck? Like, I didn't even know this existed. It's like, there's so much out there, like, yes, Google is great, but I don't know, just ask people. Or if you don't know, even another example of like ways to connect with people, there's been a local Facebook group which is called like the Wild Women of Wollongong. One woman made it, and now there's like 7,000 people, different chats going, events running in there. It's like, if you don't have the space that you want, you can also create it, or ask where it is, because there's just so much out there. And until you realize what's out there, you're not, you can be like, people don't get me, but it's like, okay, fuck, if people don't get you, find your people.
100%. And I also want to bring up, like, because I think that's great points and like examples of how to get yourself out there or like try to find your people. I also think there is a distraction in this where I find or I see, especially let's talk about pages, pages on Facebook that are created and things. I see a lot of like town pages that they bond over complaining, they bond over lacky, icky stuff. Like, just be aware of the spaces that you are staying in, because you're probably going to be exposed to it often, but like you have that discernment whether you want to stay or whether you don't, because you are on the this quest to look for your people and your supporters and your friends. And you know what, like, if you think you're alone, you are actually not. The amount of conversations that you and I probably both have around trying to find your people, friendship things that are going on, it's huge. So you're not alone, and there are ways that you can actually find your people. I was talking to a friend, an old client, the other day, and this is really random, but I was like, every time I come back to my hometown, because I travel everywhere, so I'm never really anywhere, but every time I come back to my hometown, there's like my favorite walk to do. It's like the beach clifftop walk that I like doing. And I was like, maybe I'll just post on my Instagram for whoever's around this area anyway, that if they just want to come for a walk, no one might turn up, maybe one person turns up, who cares, but I'll have a really cool conversation with them, learn something different about someone. And then maybe I'll do it again, and maybe another couple of people, maybe they also connect as well. And then who knows, by the end of the month or a couple of months, there might be like a few people coming who are just created this friendship group, I'm going to say. And then it'll be really cool, because then like while I'm coming back and I'm going, when I'm gone, these people have just found this group that they can still connect and bond with over expansive conversations, have the support of each other. And I just think those types of things would be really cool. So, that's another way that you could do it. Like exactly what you said with the rewired breath work days. That type of thing. You didn't know it was out there, and you're like, why do we not have this? But they actually did. So now you found people in that, which is really, really, really cool. There's so many different ways, online and in person, I think.
Yeah.
I love that, Georgia. This conversation has been so, so incredible. I'm so appreciative of you coming on and having this conversation, especially from the lens of, the lens of neurodivergence, because it's definitely something that I'm not even as aware of, or I don't think about it as often. So I thank you so much for being on here. I think you've created so much safety for those at home to explore themselves. And also, just a permission slip to actually do it, along with the facts of, these are the types of things that you could be feeling, these are the types of things that could be going on. So it's super incredible. And I think that, there's going to be a lot of points from this podcast episode that the listeners at home are going to resonate with. So thank you so much. Can you please tell us where we can find you?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. So you can find me on Instagram. So I'm at it's Georgia Marie. And I assume there'll be like a link in the show notes. But yeah, thank you so much. It's just been amazing. I just love this conversation.
Oh, yep, definitely. They'll be in the show notes. Okay, bye everyone.
Bye.